I'll broadcast live on Facebook.
Yeah.
All right, now this is where we need to log into his Facebook account.
Okay.
Oh, you didn't go in.
Yes. The information that we went over this morning.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, you don't have a mouse. You have the.
No, the mouse is right here.
Oh, okay. Oh, there it
That's
is. Okay,
wireless.
thanks. All right. Email. Okay, yeah, it's there. And the password. Again. Oh, it's incorrect. Don't tell me it's incorrect. Try it again. They should have it so you can see it. See if you made a mistake.
This is.
I don't know what the problem is. I forgot password. Well, let me try one more this time.
Yeah, you just did it this morning.
I know. Okay, let me get back and make sure. See, the thing, I can't see it. They don't have the view thing to see if you made a mistake. Okay, I'm gonna have to do the post. Oh, it worked this time.
Okay, there you go.
Okay. Now click over here.
Never?
No, right.
Oh, the seeing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Copy that.
Copy this.
Yeah. And send it to me.
Okay. All right.
And I'm going to set up a screen here later, so that.
You may send it to your email or what?
Actually, hang on. Yeah, you can email it to me, but
Okay. Text is good
hang
too.
on one second.
Yeah.
Here. I'll just.
Oh, take a picture of it. Okay, that makes sense.
And then it looks like you got a code sent to your phone.
Right.
Do you have your cell phone on?
Oh. Do I have mine?
Yeah. This way we can change the size so we know what it is.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you get a code from Facebook?
Not yet.
Was that your number ending in 97?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, that's where it is? Oh, wait,
Yeah.
it should be here. Oh, here it is. It just came.
Hmm?
Yeah, it just came. It just arrived.
No, that's
Oh,
not.
this
No, I'm going to
morning.
hit it now. I just want to make sure
Oh, okay.
that's your number, right? Ending in
7.
97.
Yeah.
Now you should get a code here in a second.
Okay. $12:30 p.m. Yeah. Okay, I got the code.
Okay, I'm going to type it in.
All right. Okay. Now what?
And just hit
Continue.
Yep.
Save your login to Facebook? Should I save it on that?
Yeah, you can save it.
Okay.
It's just on my account, so it's
Okay.
not, nobody else will have access to it.
Okay.
Um,
Now what about this?
You can hit never,
Never?
just because I don't want to link
Yeah,
your
right,
Google stuff to
exactly.
mine.
Okay. And what about
Hit
this?
trust this.
Trust this device. Okay. How about this?
Yeah, I think you want to
Yeah.
continue.
Yes.
Okay. Zoom meeting. Okay. It's the same thing.
Got to get it all.
Right. Okay. Where's the control? There it is. Okay. No, wait, not my timeline. Oh, select page. Okay. Standard. Go live.
Yeah, we should have screenshot that one beforehand too, so that we can actually walk.
And these
you
things
through.
are really very handy. These iPhone. No wonder Apple is in the black now.
And
Unsupported GET request.
I didn't see what that
Yeah.
error was.
Okay.
I don't know what the problem is.
Mm.
Uh,
Did it come up again? I mean, you sure this is not working?
yeah, it just keeps saying connections timed out. I don't know why. I don't know what that
Okay.
is implying. This is not giving any other information.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Why don't you re-enter it?
Yeah,
Richard?
let's
Make sure,
You enter what?
just make sure all of this, okay, this is,
yeah, all this is correct. Let's just go back and see.
Something went wrong. Okay.
All right, here. We're just gonna start over.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna go Facebook. So it's public, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Share. Oh, sorry. Sharing your page.
there you go.
Oh, sorry. Let's see if that original message comes up. I'll take a picture.
Are you logged in over there, Richard, too?
To what, the Zoom?
To your Facebook account?
Probably, yeah. Think that could be a problem?
I shouldn't be,
Mhm.
but yeah, I don't know. Because it's trying to connect your
Mhm.
account and
Well, I'm certainly not logged in to that page. I'm logged into Facebook.
yeah, just close that one for a second.
Yeah, I kind of stumped. I don't know why it's not working.
Okay. Says ID doesn't exist.
And it's weird because it's giving us like two different errors. It keeps giving us that connection timed out, but then sometimes it gets that longer one. Doesn't stay up very long though. Have there been other ways that you've done this before, not through Facebook? Have you just done it through Zoom where you just have people click the Zoom link and watch?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
The only people who would watch on Facebook are those who are not on Zoom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't think it's anything on Syracuse's end. I mean, it's possible Syracuse is blocking something, but the problem is it's not giving any information as to how we could fix it. Because if it was something I could contact IT about, I would, but I just don't know. I can't tell if it's on our end or if it's just a Facebook problem. Could be something between Zoom and Facebook not working at the moment.
Right.
Because our internet's working just fine. Because at first I was thinking, I looked it up and it says this, you could get this problem if you don't have a good internet connection, but
Right.
our internet
Well, wait.
connections.
Click over here for a second.
Click where? Here?
Just no, up top here.
Try a different one.
So
there's two of these.
Is your Trotter group page up now?
No, not that I know of. No, I think I closed all the things.
Let me try this one because they're both called the same thing, but they're both different. Maybe. No. Okay.
Permissions error.
Interesting.
Oh, now we're getting permissions error.
So you have two Richard Prince's journalisms.
I know one is I think I tried one and it didn't.
One of them isn't working. One of them, it says permission error, and then the other one is the one that we keep trying here. That's
That's the top one that we want. Let me just. You can tell by the difference in the picture.
It's going to time out. That's too long.
says I'm reading online. Could possibly check Your settings. But I mean, if you've done this before, it's probably nothing in your settings.
Yeah. If we just stop here and see if it actually connects to that laptop, that'll give us some feedback.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
Yeah. Richard, why don't we start one from your laptop?
Okay.
Yeah, and then we'll see if we have the other one.
Oh, it's working.
Oh, wow.
I don't know why. Did you close anything, or did you like log out of anything?
I've been posting on Facebook.
Okay, maybe it's just connection error between Zoom and Facebook. Could be something wonky. Okay. Yeah. All right, you're live streaming.
He's gone. Thank you.
We've got somebody waiting.
That's how we'll get on
Yeah.
YouTube because it's being recorded.
Oops, thank you.
She
Step
said
in front
these,
of
keep
you.
these going,
Okay.
and we have.
That's all right.
We met every month in various restaurants in Washington, D.C. until the COVID pandemic, when we switched to Zoom. Our participation multiplied, and we hope to have more roundtables that are hybrid, meeting in person, as well as having people attend via Zoom. This is the 6th one so far. We think of this as an online breakfast or luncheon or dinner party with the purpose to network and to learn. Some of the networking takes place in the chat room, so those on Zoom, please feel free to make use of it. A special welcome to those on Facebook. Please leave messages in the comments section if you want to reach us. All comments are on the record, and we ask everyone to be respectful of other people's time. So please try to be succinct and to the point. And now I want to introduce our host for this evening, and that would be Beverly Kirk, who is the Director of Washington Programs and Professor of the Practice at SI Newhouse School of Public Communications at Syracuse University. And Beverly, would you say a few words for us?
Thank you so much, Richard, and thank you to everyone for coming. As Richard said, I'm Beverly Kirk, and I direct the Washington programs for the Newhouse School here in DC. And just want to give you a little bit of an overview about what that entails. Syracuse students have a plethora of choices of where they can study away, which is domestic, or study abroad. And the DC Newhouse program is the newest study away program domestically. We've only been here, this is our 3rd academic year. And what happens is students can come down to DC, take core classes, get credit, and do internships wherever they have an interest, whether they're broadcast and digital journalism students, magazine and newspaper and digital students, public relations students, television, radio, and film students, visual communication students, the whole offering across the Newhouse School. The students can come here and study away for an entire semester. We have a small cohort of students here this semester, one of whom's interning at C-SPAN, another who is interning at a place called 7 Letter, which is a public opinion strategic communications firm. We have a student who is, and of course I'm standing up here trying to name everyone's internship, and I am immediately blanking on the one who is, she's at the DC Independent Film Festival. which is very cool. But last semester we had someone at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. We had 3 students interning in congressional offices on the Hill, including in Chuck Schumer's office and Kirsten Gillibrand, which makes sense. They're New York, so students at Syracuse interning there is not a surprise. But we're really thrilled to be in this space where we are, which is our new SUNDC Center, which we share with the Maxwell School, the Institute for Veterans and Military Families, our engagement folks and our alumni folks, and most importantly, our new joint venture with the Maxwell School called the Institute for Democracy, Journalism, and Citizenship, which is a new effort that I will introduce my colleague to talk about and provide you more information in the space of looking at local news, mis and disinformation, and civility. So with that, with Richard's permission, I will introduce Margaret Tala. You may recognize her from CNN and from Axios, but she is the Kramer Director and founding director of the Institute for Democracy, Journalism, and Citizenship, otherwise known as the IDJC. Margaret?
Rolls right off the top. Thanks to Richard and to everybody here. It's nice to see some old friends in the crowd. And we're so glad that we can be hosting this. We hope we'll be able to host many more conversations. So I actually teach on Monday night, so my class is taking a quiz right now. I told them they can have 5 minutes extra so that I can come talk to you guys. With Beth's gracious introduction, I just want to tell you a little bit about what we're doing here and how we're connected to the various programs that are here. Our institute really was formed after January 6th with the idea to look at challenges to media and challenges to democratic governance as being connected to each other rather than these two separate parallel things. Everybody in this room knows that the news that people consume and the non-news information or misinformation that people consume has a huge impact on how they view the world and how they view what's real and how they view what facts are and how they view who you can believe and who you can trust. And vice versa is also true. When the government is supportive of a strong independent media, you get stronger media. And when the government is undercuts or undermines the media, it weakens. Yes, it weakens democracy by weakening the media. So we're all in this moment. We don't even really need to explain. The Institute does what it's obvious that the Institute would do. It is trying to navigate this time that we're in. We are a nonpartisan institute. We have a sort of core faculty of 4 professors, 3 of us here, 1 of us in Syracuse, and many other professors across the university who also obviously are in the media and democracy space. But our IDJC faculty, who are both in the nucleus of the Maxwell School, study trends like polarization, emotional polarization, the relationship between polarization and news consumption, the relationship between local news and national polarization, civility, incivility, trust trends, all these sorts of things. So we kind of live in 3 buckets. We do, as an institute, we do research, and some of that's academic research. Some of it is news partnerships. We did a project with NBC News and a group called Engage Us during the election year, which was groups of key blocks of voters. Our students were able to watch the focus groups because they took place on Zoom in real time or to watch them afterwards. We did a focus group on former Nikki Haley voters like a week before the election. And usually the focus groups were on Tuesday nights, but it had to get moved to Monday, and I teach on Monday. So we just blew up class and the students watched the focus group. And they were freaking out because they just 20-year-olds who attend a 4-year, bachelor's program on the Eastern Seaboard, maybe have a worldview that's different than like a Nikki Haley swing voter, from whatever, not Syracuse, New York. And so the kids throwing paper at the TV screen saying, what? Luckily it's one way, the participants couldn't see us. So it was a really fun project. We're getting ready to renew it. It won't be once a month. It'll be about 4 times a year. We have a poll with Ipsos called the American Identity Poll, where we're trying to understand how different people who consume different types of news view American identity. through the lens of political issues. We had a project with a group called Neo4j, a research grant with them. They're a graphing technology company, and we used their technology and built used a team at our iSchool, our information school, to build a way to scrape Facebook and Instagram to understand hidden patterns in campaign ads that mentioned presidential candidates. So anyway, we're dabbling in a lot of really interesting stuff. That's the research part. The teaching part, we all teach. Everybody who's a professor here in Washington teaches. And the class I teach tonight is called Democracy, Journalism, and Citizenship. It's a very creative title. No one would ever see it coming. We teach students about what we study. We teach them about trust trends and polarization, and we're doing a lesson on misinformation and disinformation and AI tonight. And then finally, we do public engagement. That's the third piece of what we do. Now that we have this gorgeous space, we're looking at bringing members of Congress, members of the public in for conversations that hopefully you will all be able to attend, as well as our students. We want these to be events that include students, but we want these to be events that also include the public and journalists. So we've done some events with the Partnership for Public Service. We did an event with cartoonists who were drawing images of the 2024 election, and some international cartoonists who are under threat of being imprisoned in their home countries. So anyway, we're looking forward to a lot more interesting programming. We'd love to have all of you as involved as you want to be and send your ideas for topics and guest speakers and research and all that. Yes.
And back to Richard.
Thank you.
Over to you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
Yay.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, there they are. One advantage that people on Zoom have that we don't have is you all have name tags. Your names are flashing up. So I just want to ask everybody just say your name. Don't just your name alone, and so we know who everybody is. You don't have to give us any description of what you do or anything. All right, let's start down at the end. Joe.
Joseph Torres.
All right, next.
Shawan Davis.
All right. Okay.
Eric
Okay.
Cynthia Robbins.
Okay.
Can you hear us?
Yes. Richard Preston.
Need to pass the mic back.
Oh,
So that-
these mics, yeah.
Yeah.
Press the red button to turn it on.
Hi, Joyce Wellman,
Joe Davidson.
Lynn Adrian, Almita Hawkins, Deborah Berry. Deborah Gershon-Hernandez.
Ivan Rahman.
Tony Dasta,
Laura Brooks.
Michael Brooks.
Arana,
And Roland Roebuck.
All right, thank you all. Now we want to start off. Our topic tonight is are the media accurately covering Black and Latino relations? And those of you who read the message we sent out can get to a little background about why that's a topic. One of the most recent events that spurred this is the election results, in which Latino men particularly voted for Donald Trump in measures that surprised a lot of other folks. And so that prompted a question about this alliance that rainbow, quote unquote, rainbow coalition that exists among people of color. So we're going to talk about that, and we're also going to talk about Latin America. Now, our three panelists who are in the room, would you rather sit where you are or go sit in these chairs?
There you go.
Oh, you didn't go in the chairs.
Yeah, so you're going to check.
Popular demand.
Yeah.
I did? Oh, no, I didn't.
No. Let's see. We're going to mute that for a second. Okay. We got,
Can I be seen? Okay, so I'd like the three people who are up on the stage here to respond to the question for 3 minutes, or up to 3 minutes. Are the media accurately portraying Black and Latino relations? Dr. Desta. Oh, yeah, you
Yeah.
can introduce yourself when you.
It's
I'm Don Podesta, formerly with the Washington Post and more recently with the National Endowment for Democracy.
No.
And spent some of my career in Latin America, where I was covering the Post, covering the content of the Post South America. And then when I went to work for the NED, I spent a good deal of time in South America again, mostly in Ecuador and Bolivia. So I'm prepared to answer the question and from both ends of the hemisphere if you want. But I have a feeling others will have more cogent opinions on U.S. media than I do. I mean, to answer the U.S. media question, I would say that in my view, the coverage has been neither accurate nor adequate. And I say adequate because it's insufficient and only episodic. They only leap into action when something happens. I'm reminded of the Post coverage, that's how old I am, back in 1991, of the Mount Pleasant riots that arose when a Latina rookie cop went to arrest an African American rookie cop went to arrest a Salvadoran immigrant who was having a beer for Cinco de Mayo out in the stoop somewhere, and then everything blew up. The Post coverage was blanket, went on and on and on for days. And then it feels to me like since then, 35 years later, it's like crickets. It's like there just isn't that much. And so the episodes, and in a way you can't blame the news media because something has to happen before you can cover it. But still, in terms of sociology, it doesn't really dig very deep. And the other problem it has with accuracy is this whole notion of a Latino voting bloc. We're not, as Marie so eloquently writes in her most recent book, we're not a monolith. So when you talk about the Latino vote, which group are you talking about? People are bisected or dissected, I guess, by region, country of origin, original gene pools from when they came, and they don't all think in lockstep. So it's just something that the media has to be able to drill down and peel back the onion a little bit, to mix a metaphor. And then I'm happy to talk more about Latin.
Excuse me. Somebody's written in the chat that the microphone audio is not audible on the Zoom.
Maybe it's me. Better.
We also.
It should be.
Is that
Maybe I'm not talking directly into it.
Yeah, talk now.
Now, better.
It sounds good.
Yeah, they're asking if the mic is on. Yes, the mic is on.
The mics are,
Richard, switch
Can we
mic.
get a reaction from the person that sent a note as to whether or not
Change
can they
mic.
hear us now?
How about this? No?
Yeah, that's a better.
That's better?
Okay. Is that better?
Can you hear now?
there's one person.
Yes. Dwight said yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Can you turn on the closed caption?
Well, I think I'm overstepping my 3 minutes. And I'm happy to talk about Latin American media coverage later.
English.
Okay.
Shall I just dive in?
Dive.
Okay, all right. My name is Marie Arana. I'm an author of about 8 books on Latin America, most recently on. I'm formerly worked for the Washington Post, came to the Washington Post in 1992. And since then, have written books, and I've worked for the Library of Congress as a literary director. I was the books editor of the Washington Post. So my sense is that there really has, the coverage has been non-existent. It really has been, for me, absolutely flat. There was a time, I think the media attention to the Latino and African American relations was probably most at its peak inside the media itself. That was my experience coming to the Washington Post at a time when Milton Coleman was activating the troops and trying to get people in the newsroom to be members of the NAHJ or the NABJ. And there was a really sort of fertile time at that point for about, I would say, 8 to 10 years, Michael Gettler and Milton Coleman. But the attention to Afro-Latino relations seemed to be within the institution of the media rather than without. It wasn't on the pages. And I very much remember the time that you say, Don, because that was an extraordinary time when there was so much blanket attention to, you know, what is going on, that an African American policeman would arrest somebody who was just having a drink on Cinco de Mayo, that sort of thing. And it actually did draw some attention to creating institutions that would look at this, but not actually to be covered in the media. So I would say that that attention was non-existent. It's remarkable to me that we would talk about Afro-Latino relations because we are, as Latinos, quite African. You know, we are actually a good half of us can trace a blood quantum of African blood. I can. I'm 8% African American, which means that I have a great grandparent who is Black. So we are, and when we talk about relations, it's part of us. I mean, we have a whole population that is Afro-Latino, and I'm sure Roland will speak to that. But so Afro-Latino relations, to me, is something that we live with every day. That's my 3 minutes.
All right, thank you. All right, Roland.
My name is Roland Roebuck. I'm an Afro-Puerto Rican, and I grew up in both places, Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. I've been here since 1974, very active in the Latino community. Currently, I'm the president of the Afro-Latino Institute, an organization that addresses issues of exclusion and discrimination of Afro-Latinos. With respect to inclusion in the media, we are invisible. And I have to emphasize that we are seldom mentioned unless it's Hispanic Heritage Month, in which 2 personalities keep surfacing all the time. Celia Cruz and Roberto Clemente. I have their posters. I like them, but I'm sick and tired of just highlighting those 2 individuals when we have an array of excellent Afro-Latinos that should be exposed, highlighted, and given some space within media. We also have to address the issue of there is sort of a conspiracy of attempting to deny the Afro-Latino presence because many institutions, organizations, etc., are pushing what I call genetic purity. They want to highlight their Spanish connection, and many of these individuals in their respective countries push a racist agenda. Let us be clear that all of the Spanish-speaking countries express a high level of racism. And when they come here, they can't express it openly, but that particular cancer and sickness is there. Is discussed in the privacy of their homes and apartments. And in DC, we have had a very thorny relationship, especially with members of the Salvadoran community, because in their particular country, there is also a high level of racism, which is manifested primarily against the indigenous communities. And as you know, or some of you may not know, back in 1937, we have what is called La Matanza, in which thousands of indigenous Salvadorians were exterminated as, let's call it ethnic cleansing. So going back to the issue of voting, please, people in media, when you say that blacks voted for Trump, exclude Afro-Latinos, because many of us did not engage in that craziness. So, oh, another thing, I'm not a journalist. I'm a community activist. The journalist in my family is my beloved wife, Sylvia Moreno, that used to be associated with the Washington Post. So my expressions stem from community activism. And the reason why I look so relaxed is because I'm not a journalist.
On Zoom, we have Torrance. Are you there?
Yes, a second.
Okay. Torrance Latham, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Your turn, Torrance. He's down in Miami and with the Miami Herald, which has done takes as part of its charge covering Latin America and, of course, the Latinos in Miami. So what is your take on this question at hand, Torrance?
So I won't focus more on what media doesn't do. I think it depends. I think the Herald has done a pretty good job of laying out a lot of what he just mentioned. I do think a large block of Hispanic voters have largely felt ignored. There's the wet foot, dry foot policy that has kind of created this, I don't want to say gap, but I feel like Cubans down here feel like they got here legally, and they'll hop in our comments to quickly say, hey, they're the illegals. And I feel like, Trump's campaign kind of locked in on that division. Democrats kind of use the people of color as a unifying term. And Trump, I think, kind of exposed that that's really kind of like a fallacy, because I don't believe that everybody looks at Black and Latino voters as kind of this unifying force. I think in theory it sounds great, but when I talk to people in South Florida, I think it's very much divided. I do think that the Afro Latino experience can be emphasized more, something we're focused on more now that we have our race and culture writer kind of locking in on immigration coverage alongside with Jackie, who does, I think she's done a great job. I think our immigration team has done a great job. We've kind of laid out this week how Venezuelans are being deported, the same Venezuelans who voted for Trump. And I think that's the conversation we have to be unflinchingly honest about. A lot of Hispanic voters are voting against their interests, or maybe they felt, at least the Cubans in South Florida felt, hey, this doesn't really involve me. I'm going to vote off of my conservative interests, but now they realize somebody in their household might be married to a Venezuelan, their cousin could have Venezuelan or Nicaraguan ties, and the fact that they're going to get deported, it hits home a little differently. And I think now that we're going to kind of see the same, how do I word this? I feel like now that they're going to kind of see how they voted directly impacts them, I think we're now going to have a much different conversation moving forward. But I do think media in general has not always laid out why Hispanic voters have voted conservatively. And I think we can do a much better job of peeling back the layers, because this is a very complicated issue. I think, the Black Latino experience doesn't really get talked about enough, just like I think a lot of Black Americans feel like their lived experience here hasn't been covered accurately and appropriately. So I think this is a nuanced discussion that requires, I think we need all of us here who have those lived experiences to kind of bring that conversation to the forefront. But I don't think we should shy away from certain truths. I think people voted against their, they voted in ways that will, it'll be a boomerang effect. You voted against policies that are now going to directly impact you and your family and your friends. And I think that's something we all need to kind of face the reality of and not shy away from that. Much like we had conversations in the past with white women voters voting against their self-interest, I think that's going to be the same conversation we have for Latino voters in 2025 and beyond. Sorry, I think I took a little over 3 minutes, but this has been a huge conversation in our newsroom. And I think immigration is going to be the story of our year, and probably for the next couple of years, as long as Trump is in office. So I hope that kind of answered it.
Yes, but there's going to be a lot of competition for the most, most newsworthy thing that happens under Donald Trump. Let me ask the three of you before we take more questions about how does the issue play out differently in Latin America than it does in the United States, or maybe it's the same. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, the four of them, yeah.
Well, I'll take a stab at that. You know, the World Bank says that 1 in 4 Latin Americans considers themselves Afro-descendant, which is like 100 people. And yet the same report I'm quoting from said that it's the most invisible group of people in the entire region. And that's the media, in many ways, in some countries, exacerbates that. Most of this Black descendant population they're talking about are like in 8 countries. We all know they are, right? Brazil, Venezuela, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Colombia, and a couple of others, Mexico. The Southern Cone, the Black population is particularly infinitesimal. So you
could you explain about Argentina? What you say is
the Southern Cone, Argentina, Chile.
Well, I mean, what happened to Black people in Argentina?
Well, they were used for cannon fodder in several wars, including the war against Paraguay. Even in the wars of independence, you know, they had trouble getting over the Andes, you know, to get to the other side. And then there was, as the men were dying in wars and through other diseases and other things, women intermarried with whites and mestizos, and it became a whiter looking country. And also, Argentina is hugely European immigration source for Europeans from not just Spain, but Italy and Germany. I mean, my definition of an Argentine was an Italian who speaks Spanish, acts like a Frenchman, and thinks he's British. No offense to anybody who's from Argentina. And in Chile, it's even more pronounced because between the Andes and the Atacama Desert, and the fact that Chile faces not to Europe, but not to Africa the other way, left very little entry points for the African population. And nor were they needed for in most of Spanish-speaking Latin America, they weren't necessarily needed by the landowners for manual labor because they had the Indians to pick on. So that's why you get these mestizo populations. But the media doesn't really reflect that. I mean, just one quick anecdote. Just last week, there was a big dust-up in the Colombian presidential cabinet when the ministers got into it, and the vice president of Colombia, Francia Marquez, is African Colombian. First one in the history of the country, second female vice president in the history of the country. A lot of disrespect, and this was broadcast live first time ever too, which was really made news. So that's the case where the media was really all over it. And afterwards, you know, she spoke about the president started criticizing a bunch of the cabinet ministers, and she was also in charge of the Ministry for Equality and Equity. And she came out afterwards and said, you know, ever since I took over this ministry, I've been pilloried, I've been abused, I've been called every other name in the book. And I bet you, and the ministry is only a year plus a few months old. So I bet you if some white guy or some mestizo from the elite had started this ministry, everyone would be saying, well, what a beast he is, he can do it. And those quotes were picked up by all the Colombian media, and they're all over television. And this was just, like I say, last week. But that's rare. I mean, it's rare that it takes something of that high level of exposure to actually address that issue of the disrespect that Black people face in a country like Colombia, which has a large minority of African descended people.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Marie.
Okay, first of all, I do think that in Argentina, for instance, we have to be very honest and say that they actually actively purged the Black population. Buenos Aires used to be a very percolating, very effervescent Black community. And now you'd have a hard time finding any kind of percentage in Buenos Aires. And it's also difficult to talk about the Black and the indigenous communities because, you know, this is the African Americans were brought in chains in the conditions that were largely to Latin America. There were 13 million or 12 million, and 1 million died en route. More than 10 million, almost 11 million, all went to Latin American countries in the Caribbean. So, and to the United States, what, 350,000 only came to the United States. So we are very, very infused with African American population. And it's 1526 when the first Africans came to Latin America. So we're talking about a very long time. We're talking about Blacks actually being part indigenous and the other way around. So when you talk about the Blacks and the indigenous, it's crazy to me because largely we are mixed, and the indigenous population is very much infused with Blacks and vice versa. They have intermarried for 500 years, more than that. So it's extraordinary. I think Roland is absolutely right when he says that there is present a very strong racism in Latin America, but it's a different kind of racism. It's not a binary thing. It's a it's a colorism, if you will, more than it is a racism. And in families, when this is very much a part of my family, where you suddenly have, you know, a Black baby be born, or a Chinese, Asian-looking baby be born, and people are saying, well, you know, that's, you know, Tia China, and they, or that's Tia Morenita, or whatever. But you know, it's kind of crazy, frankly, in the Latin American context, to talk about the relations, because the relations are very present in the homes. They're very present in the cities. They're very present, even though there is, as Roland says, this very strong sense of colorism. The whole business of whitening the races is something that has come, you know, furiously down the generations from the colonial days. And still today, there is this sense that if you are slightly lighter, you are better off. And there is that almost very present wish, which is so poisonous and so venomous in so many ways, that you want to intermarry. The ethnicity that most intermarries in this country, in the United States of America, is the Latino, because we've been doing it for 500 years and we do it here. So when you talk about you know, race relations, it's a very, very different quantity for us, very different, and we understand it differently. Latin America is one thing, but we bring that with us to the United States in a way.
A lot of migrants, white, Hispanic migrants that come to the United States suffer a high level of frustration, because in their particular country, they were considered white, and now they are in the United States, and they are considered members of the minority community. So many of these individuals may require a lot of psychological help to adjust themselves to this new minority definition. We also have another sneaky program in which many of our white Hispanics, and let me also say that media refuses to use the term white Hispanics. We, the members of the Afro-Latino, we want to be very specific as to who we are addressing. But media seldom uses that term. So white Hispanics want to express racism but they refuse to embrace the term white Hispanics. And we use it to establish the relationship and also to create some level of guilt. The other sneaky group that is part of this sick agenda are the grandmothers. Grandmothers are very interested in having their little white granddaughters marry white folk so the kids could look as white as Xerox paper. There is this subtle desire to bring these little cute babies that are, like I said, as white as Xerox paper. And the excuse that they use is, oh, I don't want the little kid to suffer discrimination. I don't want to create chaos within the family, etc. So the process of marital selection many times has a color. It's not just about love, it's about color selection in order to propagate this sick idea of creating babies as white as Xerox paper. The other piece is what I call ethnic elasticity, meaning that you are white over there and you want to continue being white and you stretch it. But some of our white Latinos can do it based on accent, color, etc. So this strategic assimilation into the white world sometimes causes a lot of internal friction and conflict. And we don't have enough Afro-Latino psychologists to address this massive mental distortion.
Can I piggyback on that for a second?
Okay, it's Torrance, Mike.
Yeah, it's Torrance.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
Torrance, I'm sorry. I feel like if we're talking solutions for the lack of coverage, I think we have to discuss the fact that Trump's campaign and his allies effectively exploited what you mentioned, divisions and bigotry within minority communities. He effectively pit immigrants against, he pit minority communities against immigrants and in turn each other. And I think the colorism is I'm from Louisiana. There's colorism where I'm from. It's light skin, dark skin, red, and all of those different connotations. I think Trump was able to use an us versus them framing, which is, it's not new. It's across the ideological spectrum, honestly. But I think he was much more direct in inviting, Black and Latino voters to be a part of this us, so long as they can acknowledge that there's a them also. And I think we have to spell out these things. I think one of Trump's campaigns, it was a Spanish broadcast television ad. He essentially attacked Kamala Harris for her support of transgender medical care for immigrants. But in quote, I think I wrote this down. It said Kamala Harris is with them, President Trump is with us. And I think that us versus them mentality is symbolic in South Florida, and I think it's symbolic in this country. And I think we have to pay attention to that because, we can't deny that this conservative messaging, like you said, it is a psychological thing. But if you're coming into this country and all you listen to is Spanish broadcast radio that's heavily conservative, I don't really know what else is in the marketplace for you to contend with. I think you're going to trust what your family members are telling you to be true. And I think a lot of this is tribal. And I think we have to speak to those tribalistic tendencies to kind of get to the root cause of where we stand today. Sorry about that. I just wanted to kind of touch on that because I feel like there's this inner division within minorities. So you can't use these people of color broad terms without adding that context and nuance, because I think that's how we got here to have these different voting blocks where a white Hispanic will vote markedly different than an Afro Cuban. So anyway, that was it.
That's good, thanks. All right, are there any questions here from the people in the room and also on Zoom? Okay, Joe Torres. Oh, wait, we need to get it.
Yeah, you get the microphone.
All right, yeah, all right.
you know, like thank you.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
Can it be okay? Yeah, it's for me, you know, like obviously like race and gender, they're like there's the indicators there of like where you belong in a hierarchy, right? And for our community, we haven't addressed our own hierarchy. The history of Spanish colonization, and then we come in this country. And I was born here, but my parents came here, and we're trying to fit into this other hierarchy. And so we haven't addressed the issue of our own hierarchy and how that impacted how we were raised. Like you said, the whole Mejara Raza stuff, right? It's like Professor Tanya Hernandez writes in Racial Innocence that the often the scene of the crime when it comes to racism, anti-Black racism, is at home.
Mm-hmm.
I know that was true in my household, you know, and so like, you know, don't go out in the sun, don't want that you get too dark, you know. That's a common theme among a lot of Latino kids. Among a lot of Latino kids, right?
It's going on and
so
on. The mic went on.
So the issue is when it comes to Spanish language media, our own media, right? Also called our own media, like we're not addressing race in hierarchy at all. You know, we're reinforcing hierarchy, right? In our media system. Media systems do that. They reinforce racial hierarchy, right? So, and even how do we deal with our own? Because I think, and I'll stop here. If we deal with our own racial hierarchy and understanding how it impacted us, right? It would will be more solidarity with each other and to the other Black folks as well in the United States and other folks of color, because you know it's all based on white supremacy. So I just want to see what you all think about that.
Okay.
I'm happy to take that on. It's a really good question. I think that speaks to the unity problem, right? I mean, do we all agree what the hierarchy is? And I think that because Latinos are all of all colors, we are all Latinos up here, and we are different shades of skin. And I think it's hard for us to actually understand who we are as a group. We are certainly not a political group, that's been established. We are certainly not a racial group, that's clear from the science. But we do have a common colonial past. And it is that colonial past that has informed us in many ways, in negative ways. The colonial past enforced a division between us, in fact, so that we didn't have a chance of unity. There is no sense of cohesion between a Salvadoran and a Bolivian because we were kept apart. The one point where we might have come together as a unified group, Latinos, whatever color we are, was at the time of the Wars of Independence. And what happened in the Wars of Independence is that the white elites took over from the Spanish, and they promoted the same hierarchy that was there before. We come to this country, we're all called Latinos, we're all called Hispanics for the first time in our lives, because we were, you know, Mexican Americans or Salvadoran Americans or Cuban Americans, but we were not Hispanics or Latinos. And now we are forced into that group. So when you talk about the hierarchy of who we are, you would have, I think, a pretty wild, chaotic argument about settling that. We are, in many ways, brought together by it's sort of an aspirational sense that maybe we can mean something together, because we never meant anything together in the colonial days when we were being kept apart and we were being brutalized in that way. So, you know, when you're talking about relations, from my point of view at least, race relations, ethnic relations between the African American experience and the Latino experience, you're talking about a wild difference. You know, we came from very wildly different origins, and it's very difficult. I mean, this country is an extraordinary experiment, is it not, in bringing together all of these different roots and different origins. We do our best when we try to find our common experiences. And I think, at this point in time, that very thing is being tested. Not just for Latinos, not just for Black Latino relations, but generally. And I think if we could come to some sort of sense that even with these very vastly different histories that we have, Latinos, African Americans, Anglo Americans, that there is some sense. I don't see this being covered in the media at all. I don't see that. I don't see this the actual tensions that we are dealing with right now being covered in the media. And I wish it were. I would love to read really good, deeply researched analysis about what is happening between ethnicities and races now in this country.
Here. We don't even have the language to engage in this coalition building. Okay? We don't have the language in terms of how we Afro-Latinos define ourselves. It was rough because the terms that are used in Latin America and in the United States to describe us, such as Prieto, Moreno, Trigueño, Jabao, Negro de M. We had to go through a lot in order to force a dignified definition of who we are. So we've pushed for the term Afro-Puerto Rican, Afro-descendant, etc., in order to bring some dignity to our people. But it was very, very, very hard. When I go to Puerto Rico sometime, and I say, I am Afro-Puerto Rican, the first thing they say, no. Eso de Afro, no, you are Puerto Rican. In other words, they want me to embrace nationalism before embracing race. And I am saying, no, I am going to accentuate my Africanness, and then I will deal with all these other cute nationalist expressions. But there is a lot of resistance. You want to hear a joke? The census in Puerto Rico in the year 2000, 95% of the folk, including my primos, said they were white. Why? Because of internal oppression, confusion. And they use that census moment in order to elevate themselves like they ate a helium sandwich and they're just going up. Oh, I'm going to be white for the few minutes. It's sick. Okay? But after they educated themselves, etc., the numbers began to reflect the true demographic identity of the folk in the islands. The other thing that I went through when I was here at my alma mater, Federal City College, one of my Black brothers said to me, Roebuck, you are not 100% Black. And I said, wow, that's deep. And he said, why I am not 100% Black? He said, because you talk that Mexican mess. Meaning, the fact that I was bilingual denied my rightful place within the Black experience. Why? Because of ignorance, lack of knowledge, lack of awareness that the slave ship stopped in different zip codes. And as a result, we speak different languages. But I blame the educational system in the United States to create these massive cultural and racial distortions. So I suggest to white Hispanics that if they want to engage in coalition building, not collision building, but coalition building, that they first practice with us, with Afro-Latinos, so we could develop the language, we could develop the strategies, and then you graduate to deal with my Afro-American brothers. But you can't jump from this to that without going through us. At the same time, I get a lot of feedback from my Afro-American brothers that say, you know, these Latinos, they come over here, we struggled during the civil rights, we got the hoes, we got the dogs, we got the this, etc. We reach certain level of labor rights, and then the Hispanics come and work for 35 cents an hour, destroying our struggle. Then I hear from the Latinos, you know, blacks don't want to work. They're just standing in the corner, and my taxes are being used to subsidize them. That's why they're standing in the corner, and we are working in landscaping, fixing the roof, working during winter time, and doing all kind of crazy stuff. So Afro-Latinos are in a very strategic position to hear the gossip from white Hispanics and Afro-Americans. But we have to encourage media to push these ideas that I'm promoting in terms of let us use this new presidential dictatorship as a galvanizing point to bring all of these folk together. And those that want to promote sabotage and confusion, eliminate them from the mix. Because we have a lot of folk that are co-opted in order to create unnecessary divisions and retard our collective advancement. But we need to be cruel with the truth. We need to call them out. Okay, but we too nice. You know, media, progressive media, I'm not talking about corporate media. Because corporate media, they are into a lot of stuff. They're looking at ads in the paper, and some of the folk that are associated with those papers fall into traps. They want to inflate their ego. Oh yeah, I work for this badass paper. But what are you doing to advance our collective condition? Some of them, because I challenge them. Look, I'm a journalist. I'm not here to advocate. I'm not Jesse Jackson. I'm not this, I'm not that, etc. So the role of the journalist need to be redefined, especially under this current presidential dictatorship. What is it that you're going to do? Because we in the street, we created space for you to have a job. And we expect you, when you're there, to show some level of advocacy. But you fall into the trap. You want to do the Afro selfie. You want to be in the mix. You want to show your business cards that you are associated with this great paper. It doesn't impress me. It's what you are doing. A couple months ago, I went to Unidos USA. I went to LULAC. And I say, hey, what are you doing in reference to Afro-Latinos? They couldn't answer. As proof, I sent the memo to Richard. I said, Richard, this is what I am doing. And my question is, what are white Hispanics doing to advance the interests of us that are being discriminated on a daily basis? What is your role? If you white and Hispanics, I'm saying help. Don't just stay in your ivy tower. Help, because we need you. And if we don't use this strategic timing right now, whew, you can forget it because white people in the future are going to be a minority. But if we that are going to be the majority are confused, suffering from internal oppression, doing Afro selfies, we're not going to. So
Okay. Well, nobody, the National Association determined a few years ago that the Afro-Latino journalists were not getting their fair share in the organization. I don't know. Unfortunately, none of the people I invited from that group is here.
But Ivan is here.
Well, he's not in the current group. That's what I'm saying.
Oh,
and so he will make it known. But we have some past presidents of NAHJ here on the Zoom, and others who are active. And I wonder if any of them can answer some of Roland's concerns about Afro-Latino journalists, and if they are in fact doing some of the things that he advocates. Anybody want to take that on? Well, all right, your silence speaks volumes. All right, your ship had something. I was asking if the current Afro-Latino task force of NAHJ is addressing any of the concerns that Roland raised. Okay, let's get it. Yeah, say your name.
Hi, I'm E.R. Ship. Is the mic on?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think we as journalists need to do a better job of educating ourselves so that we don't fall so easily into certain kinds of traps. I'm an old person, as I am reminded every day when I see my students. But only recently did I really start thinking about some of these issues we're raising and how these various ethnic and even tribal differences exist out there. There was an exhibit at the Schomburg Center for Research and Culture in New York that focused on Afro-Mexicans, and I hadn't really thought about the whole livelihoods of that. And then there's the exhibit currently at the National Museum of African American History and Culture looking at the transatlantic slave trade. And not just the fact that there was such an expansive trade, but the impact of that on all these different countries, even today. Something, again, I now thought about. So I think ourselves understand history and culture.
People are sitting in front of this
So it's nice. Fall into the,
do you know where it is? I don't know. It's in one of the schools, one of the universities.
Someone needs to mute themselves.
Yeah.
So that we don't fall into the traps. It seems to me that the big trap is whiteness is normal and the norm, and everybody else gets lumped together. And if we approach that as journalists following that pattern, then we assume that everybody else together has the same interests at all times, and are therefore shocked when election results show otherwise. And we also think that we've covered the issues when we cover those ethnic holidays or months. So what we need to do if we educate ourselves better is to be able to pitch stories that are part of the regular beats that we're covering, but with the sensitivity to the differences among these various people. So that's what we can do as journalists, is to do a better job of educating ourselves so we can produce better stories. And then we'll leave it to the activists to do some of the other things that need to be done. But the two things will come together at some point. We will be educating a wider swath of people, and the activists will be pushing the agendas that we will then be covering, and people will understand those things a bit better. So this is a great conversation to have on very general terms, but I think we as journalists need to figure out what we can do better in this area.
Okay, we have a lot of questions here. Let me also point out, though, I'm going to get to the questions, but one of our speakers has arrived. I need a microphone.
Don't we have a microphone that's not being used somewhere?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have one of our panelists. Now, Soledad O'Brien couldn't make it after all. She had a medical thing to do today. But Karen Carrillo is here, of the Amsterdam News, who wrote a book about this whole subject. And I just wanted to acknowledge her and to ask her if she had anything she wanted to say. But that's no longer than 3 minutes, of course. Karen, are you there? Oh, we're not hearing her. Oh, Karen, you need to put your mic on, perhaps.
Maybe she can raise her hand.
Or raise your hand. I see the map with her name on underneath.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, stepped away.
Okay, all right, well, we'll go. All right.
Let me.
Thank you. I'm Joe Davidson. It's really disturbing to learn that this white superiority complex has affected Latinos as much as it has affected Black people. I didn't realize that. I mean, that's really disturbing because I can see it so clearly in Black folks. To Roland's point though about advocacy and journalism, I appreciate everything you said, but we're not going to identify ourselves as advocates. But in our journalism, let me just repeat something Jesse Jackson once said. He said you can be both ethnic and ethical. And in our journalism, we can investigate, we can report, we can expose, without necessarily labeling ourselves as an advocate, as an advocate journalist. I had a politician tell me one time. He said, "Joe, you're wearing it on your sleeve." And I said, "What am I?" He said, "Your blackness." But I was working for a mainstream paper, and I was questioning him about his opposition to affirmative action. And so you can report, you can report honestly, and you can report thoroughly, and you can report aggressively, all the while maintaining the facts without going over into the advocacy road. It's not a matter of if you don't call yourself an advocate, then you aren't an advocate. It's a matter of your journalism exposing everything that needs to be exposed, or at least to the extent that you can, in a direct, straightforward, journalistic way, because essentially the facts are on our side. At least that's the way I look at it. You tell the truth, and the truth will, this whole business about the truth will set you free hasn't happened quite yet, but nonetheless, the point is that you report the truth about the way this country deals with Black people and Latino people. You don't have to be an advocate. You just have to be a very aggressive journalist who goes for the facts.
Okay, Lynn.
It's Lynn Adrian, and my question's a little different for the panelists we have. Just briefly, each of you say two main sources of information that you believe the Latino community goes to, because I think we are dealing with fallacies in a lot of ways. We think that everybody's going to the New York Times or the local newspaper, and that's not where people are getting their information anymore. And to Joe's point, there's a lot of good, solid journalism being done, but people aren't accessing it because they're listening to podcasts or other streams or TikToks to get their information. So if you could each address where you think people are getting their information from right now.
Well, I'm not an expert on the broadcast range today of Univision or Telemundo or those places.
You off your thing? Are you off your thing?
Yeah.
Can I go get my water?
Yeah.
What was
Okay.
She knows you. You got that thing. You sound like a drug dealer.
I muted her. I muted her.
Yeah, I still get my news from the New York Times and the Washington Post, although less and less. But I don't know to what degree local newspapers like El Tiempo Latino and things like that still have much resonance with the community. I think probably not. They don't have enough of a what we call in Spanish tiraje, circulation to reach great numbers. And so I fall back on radio. I fall back on AM radio, for Latinos, and a lot of that is music and banter, but that's my sense of it without being an expert on Nielsen ratings and that sort of thing.
Well, I agree. It's completely local radio for the great majority of Latinos. And the print media, else nowhere. Univision, Telemundo, yes, but for entertainment, not really a lot for news. It's radio. It's also, the Latino, the American Latinos are becoming more and more evangelicals. That explains a great deal, by the way, about the division of the political situation. But through the evangelical radio and communications is where a lot of Latinos are getting their information, particularly because in the evangelical world, you're told to vote your faith. So that has been a huge, I think, influence on this particular election. At any rate, what we're talking about now is the big corporate media structures are not really getting down to the core of the population of Latinos. By the way, thank you so much for that comment that you made about education. That is my big mission in everything that I do is we really need to know who we are before we can deal with the situation of our role in this country. And we don't know very often who we are. And we're rendered invisible in so many ways. And I'm talking about African Americans every bit as much as Latinos.
Okay, look, before you go, Ron, let me get these people on who are on Zoom. 3 hands up. I want to get all of them. We want to go to Fiji first, where John Yu is, and then Rebecca Aguilar, and then Melanie Torrance. So those 3. John, you're first.
Thank you, Richard. Richard, I hope that you can hear me okay.
Yes.
Just want to congratulate you on another really fantastic roundtable. But I want to make 2 or 3 really quick points. I want to deal with the whole question of invisibility. When I arrived at the Miami Herald as the world editor back in 2003, one of the problems that I had shortly thereafter was that we were writing a lot about Latin America, but Afro-Latin Americans were largely invisible from the coverage. So what I did is working with the entire staff and others, we dispatched our reporters around the continent to write about what was happening with Afro-Latin Americans. And we produced probably 8, 9, 10 parts of a series called A Right Wing Voice, which is still being talked about today, which shows that it was the right thing to do. I think I saw Leonard Pitts on earlier. We sent him to Brazil to write about what was happening in the Rio favelas. And the reaction in Miami and throughout the region was just phenomenal because it showed that there was a real thirst for this kind of information. There were a number of sessions that we had, sort of town hall meeting in Miami. A lot of people came out. It became a program, part of the curriculum for the school district. And the U.S. embassies in Latin America picked up the series and transported it to various embassies in the region. So that and a lot of the issues that we wrote about today are still resonating today. So that's and the series is still on the Miami Herald website, and you can find it there. The other thing the second point I wanted to make was that there are still amazing stories pertaining to Afro-Latin Americans that are playing out today. Someone talked about the situation in Colombia. There's so many rich stories there. One of the things I'm proud of, and now working at Politico, is that Vice President Marquez granted us the first interview with foreign media after she was elected. And we had an amazing Q&A with her that we gave very good play. But that's just one story. There's so many others. And with elections coming up in Colombia soon, there are a number of Afro-Colombian storylines that come out of that. So For anyone interested in reporting and telling the stories of Afro-Latin Americans, Afro-Colombians, and others, there are great stories out there to tell. And finally, Richard, if I can make this point, I was in Salvador last week talking to a friend of yours, Paulo Ruggiero, who is very much involved in issues that pertaining to the Afro-Brazilian community.
Not
okay.
Not El Salvador.
No. Salvador, Brazil. Yeah. And one of the things that he told me subsequently is that he's always looking for connections with American journalists and others. He's putting on a big conference in November, Afrofuturismo, that he would welcome the participation of journalists, Black journalists, that is in the U.S. And elsewhere, because he thinks that bond is really critical, and particularly at this time, and we all know what's happening in the United States and elsewhere, to create these linkages is as important as ever. So I'll stop there, Richard, and again, congratulations on a great program, and looking forward to talking to you about some other issues.
Great. Rebecca Aguilar.
Hi there. Thanks a lot for this conversation. So I am a former NHJ vice president, and I just heard you say silence speaks volumes. Well, you know, I'm not about being silent. So I'm very proud of NHJ having an Afro-Latino task force. For many years, and I've been a member of NHJ since it was a baby, maybe since 1986. And I would hear members, Afro-Latino members saying, we feel invisible. NABJ, hugs us when we're there. We don't feel like, respected. We don't feel seen. And I would hear this. And so I'm very proud of NHJ, way after I was vice president, that they formed a task force to deal with this important conversation. We want everybody to feel like they're part of NHJ, that they don't just have to be part of any BJ, that they're part of us. And so I wish I could tell you what more they're doing, but what's important is they keep the conversation going. And when they feel invisible, they're saying, hey, we're a task force, we're here. You need to listen to us. You have to. We should have panels. We should have speakers. We should have mentors. And that's the beauty of the task force. So yeah, I know you had said silence speaks volumes. I was just gathering my thoughts. Got to give me.
Very good. McNally Torrance.
Hi, thank you so much for this wonderful dialogue. Yes, I was on the board when we created the Afro-Latino Task Force, and like Rebecca said, having a conversation. You cannot ignore these issues. You cannot let things fester. I'm in South Florida, in the Miami area. I've been here for almost 20 years, and I am telling you, the anti-colorism here is a reality, and people voted for different reasons, but I'm not gonna peg all that on economics. I just think that that's might be partly, it's very complicated, but we have to face the reality of, of what happens, of ignorance. And to me, racism is ignorance. And I'm Puerto Rican. I grew up in Puerto Rico, and they have a whole host of issues over there. But I don't subscribe to any of that. I am all about having a discussion and facing these issues, because if we don't do that and we don't learn from each other, we are never going to move forward. So Richard, I thank you so much for having this discussion.
Richard, can I add one more thing following up on McNally? Another thing that happens, and it happens with journalists, and we have to be careful with this, especially Latinos, is we start pegging each other, right? Mexicans only cover Mexican stuff, Venezuelans, Puerto Ricans. We can't do that. As a Latina, I cover everybody. If my community, Latinos, Afro-Latinos, Blacks, whatever, I'm going to cover you. That's all there is to it. And I think what the Trump administration has done successfully is peg Latinos after Latinos, right? They said Venezuelans, we're not touching you. You've already, signed up for political asylum, but they're still going to deport them now. So when you think, oh, we're the privileged over the non-privileged, Venezuelans over Mexicans, or, us Mexicans here over the Puerto Ricans who are part of us, right? Part of our country. that we have to be careful as journalists. Don't get caught up in that noise. Don't get caught up in that hate. Don't think about, you know what, I'm just going to think about my Mexican people and the hell with McNelly and the Puerto Ricans. No, because she's like my sister, right? I can't be, if it happens to her, it's going to happen to me. If it's happening to us, it's going to happen to the Black community and the indigenous community and all the rest. So we got to stop, because it's happening. That tunnel vision, it's happening with us journalists, and we need to stop that. That's it. No more silence is a priority. I'm gonna embroider that on a shirt for you, by the way.
Okay, anybody else?
Yvonne.
Okay.
Hi. I think one of the things, having working in coalition building for 30 years at this point, is that we need to stop the assumption that people of color are together or should be together. There's no reason for us to think that, simply because that's a philosophy that's come down to us. But that's not. Hello? Oh. Hello? Okay. Yeah, but that's not the reality. And I remember when I was in Miami Herald a long time ago, when they had a lot of reporters covering every single geographic piece of that county. And I remember covering communities, basically whole communities of African Americans, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, Nicaraguan exiles, Haitians, and I can't remember what else, Nicaraguans. And when I would cover them, basically they saw that they were all, what I can say is they when you talk to them, they'd see that there were a lot of things they had in common, that the cultures were different, and then they had to educate themselves, and we as journalists had to educate ourselves about the difference in cultures. So one of the things that I encountered a lot here in African Americans was African Americans telling me through me and to them that I wasn't Black, or I didn't want to be Black, and that kind of thing, because they don't realize, okay, there are Black people who have different cultures and from different countries. One thing that I think is happening now is through social media, is that we see a lot more young people, particularly, educating themselves about the differences in cultures and how race and culture is mixed. And it's not, you don't see necessarily race and culture. What I find a lot of people, African Americans, for example, would say, okay, race comes first, and not realizing, well, there's race and culture. You can't just simplify people, because that's part of their identity. And if you do that, you can get past that, then you start educating people, start educating amongst each other, and journalists educate themselves too. Because we're also getting into this binary thing about race, white, Black, as opposed to, well, culture in the mix too. We have to consider that, so that then we can have an actual conversation to educate ourselves about how best to cover people. Like, how best do I cover a Dominican or a Nicaraguan exile? We have very big political differences there, but if I learn part of their history and part of my history and see where it coincides, then we can start actually talking to each other and actually covering each other better.
I'm Deborah Perry. A question kind of following up on coalition building. Is the fight over birthright citizenship one of those issues that might kind of bring communities together to at least fight this fight? But it's still being, yeah, I'm just saying in terms of the reality.
Repeat the question.
Executive order, where are we on that, and is there likely to be any kind of unity around fighting that issue, pushing back on that issue?
Is that on my phone?
Oh, somebody
Go with that one. Go ahead.
Yeah, that to me is a new issue, and with the issue of deportations, a lot of folk are confused, afraid, etc. But I have not been aware of our local Latino leadership to address that particular concern. I don't know if some of you rode Metro to come to this event, but I want you to look at primarily the Latino passengers. And you're gonna notice that many of them are not carrying a book. In terms of how we access information, we have to take into consideration that within the Latino community, we have a high level of illiteracy. We have PhDs, we have smart people like Don, etc., but we have a large segment of our community lacks that high level of education. So as a result of that, many of them hear their information through radio. Did I read in the paper? Did I read in Washington Hispanic, etc.? They're not doing that. They get in their information through radio. Telemundo and Univision, those two stations are just created to dull your Latino mind. They have not embraced the PBS concept or historical channel, etc. It's just to debase women, okay, and entertain, not to educate. And if you don't believe me, just spend a couple days watching, even if you don't speak Spanish, watch it, and you're gonna see an absence of Afro-Latinos in the commercials, but you're not gonna hear any level of intellectual enriching discourse.
Yes, yes.
I don't want to lose the point you about birthright citizenship. That's written into the Constitution, so that it's not much of a fight to save it per se, as maybe what we can find is ways to explain to people what's going on and what some of these issues are, what an executive order means and what impact it has, and the way government is set up, some basic stuff that a lot of people don't know or have forgotten. And maybe the common thing would be for us, again, as journalists, to find ways to explain what this stuff means. And then across the spectrum of people we're talking about, they will begin to understand some things that they have in common that they should be fighting for, and some things they don't need to worry about to lower their blood pressure, because the fight is going to be a long one. And we've only been at this for a few weeks now, and I'm being bombarded with people who are panicking every day about some little thing. But birthright citizenship should be okay because it's in the Constitution itself. 14. Even before them, yeah.
But if I may,
go ahead.
In reference to Morgan, you have through the School of Journalism have on a yearly basis been visiting Cuba. And I was there in December for the international conference on Afro-descendants. And it was very interesting to hear the local folk that are into communication talk about Morgan State and their commitment to engage in serious exchanges. So this is a little commercial for Morgan University. So I just wanted to let you know that you enjoy a high level of appreciation for the folk over there. And along the line of Cuban, it was very interesting to hear white Cubans embracing their Africanness and expressing it with pride. But one of the things that really shocked me was the usage of the term mulatto, which is still very active in the semantics and in the daily expression. So that was just a little note, but the commercial is, if you don't have to pay me, it's free.
There's some Morgan people on the Zoom call too, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we don't, okay, go ahead.
I'm sort of a real outsider because I'm a visual artist. And, you know, the is one thing that's going on.
Say your name.
Oh, Joyce Wellman. The cast of color, cast of gender, cast of height, cast of, but the one I really want to talk about is this color thing. Because, you know, as a visual artist, I'm a painter, printmaker, I know color. We look at this table, it's white. If we look at the blackboard there, it's black. And yep, red. That lady has on red. And some yellow is in here too. There's nobody with those colors. You could put your hand up against a piece of paper. If it's a piece of white paper, you are not that color. I could put my hand up against this black thing. I'm not that color. Nobody is red, nobody is yellow, nobody is white, nobody is black. Now, they use this color stuff to separate us, and we've all been talking about that. You know, I think it's really important to do geographical kind of thing, like Afro-Puerto Rican, Afro-American. You know, African Americans, we don't quite know which country we came from in Africa. It's African American. We do have Nigerian Americans and so on. So I think part of the problem is that the separation is, you know, we help to separate ourselves on a certain level because we're into this color thing. And I'm just going to finish with, because the last time I looked, every single person on this earth pretty much has two eyes. One nose. They usually have 5 fingers. Now, you don't have to see out of your eyes real well. But every single person who comes through the birth canal has 46 chromosomes, exactly. 23 from the male zygote and 23 from the female zygote. So what I'm really saying, we are the same. And one thing that everybody is going to do, no matter how rich, poor, anything you are, you're going to die. You're going to be born and you're going to be dying. Everybody comes through the womb and woman. That's all I have to say. As a colorist, there's nobody in this world who's yellow or red or white or black. I mean, you know, it sounds like, oh, she's just trying to say everybody should love each other. Yeah, I am kind of saying that. But we can get away from the colorism, the system of caste. You know, caste, their origins are this in Michelle Wilkinson's book. Everybody should read it. She spells it out really, really well. You know, so, but that's it. Just think about it. You know, we are, just from art's point of view, I'm not a journalist, but we kind of are in a certain kind of way because we do our work about things. So that's it. Nobody's black, nobody's white, nobody's red, nobody's yellow.
Okay. We just have about 10 minutes left. So I want to hear from the people, some of the people who have not said anything who are on the Zoom. So this is your chance. Who wants to say something up there? How about Ugo Balta and Felix Contreras? Felix.
I'll let my good friend Ugo go first.
Okay.
Well, you're on.
Ugo, are you there? Okay, he's deferred to you, Felix.
We're all being polite and stuff. Thank you for doing this, first of all, Richard. And very quickly, because I know we have time running out. I'm at a complete advantage in that what I do, I cover music. I cover music from Latin America and diaspora and everything. And that is where, you know, I did it when I first went to Cuba for the first time in 2006. I did a podcast and I called it, for NPR, I work for NPR, by the way. I did a podcast called While the Politicians Argued, the Musicians Jammed. And it's always been that way. The musicians are always the one that are finding inspiration, ignoring genre, ignoring cultures, ignoring everything. And it plays out now. That was true in Cuba in the 1940s. It's true right now when Bad Bunny is doing a record with Grupo Frontera, the Mexican regional band. And I think that can, I've always felt like that is a way for us to try to understand and get through these differences and try to find, look at some of these collaborations, try to find these genre-breaking collaborations and try to get an understanding of how musicians think. Because where is the inspiration? Like there is so much more. I started doing this podcast 15 years ago. by then, there's so much interest growing in the Afro-Latino, Colombia, Venezuela, or everywhere, Uruguay. And I think that if we can use musicians, you know, broaden your scope, listen to music, listen to the All Latino podcast, you know, broaden your scope and listen to how these musicians are breaking down these genres. And that might help inform and inspire your coverage in trying to understand and bridge these differences. And then reflecting that back on your readers, on your listeners, on the people, your viewers, and all that stuff. I'm just firmly convinced that if you want to put your finger on the pulse of what's happening in Latino communities, plural, in this country, you listen to the music, because that's where all this stuff is happening. Bad Bunny's the thing right now, right? He's everywhere. But where does that come from? He's 30 years old. He's finally leaning into his ancestral roots. And then again, that's all Africa. Bomba plena, all of that. So I don't know. I knew we had a little bit of time left. I just wanted to drop that in, like turn to the music and maybe use that as a source of inspiration, a source of moving stuff forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Felix. All right. I see Phil Lewis on the call now. Phil is new president of the Washington Association of Black Journalists. So we want to congratulate Phil as he starts his term. And I don't see him on the screen there anymore. But anyway, congratulations. Is there any observations you want to make about what was said today?
Yeah, thank you, Richard. Hi, everybody. I'm sorry I couldn't make it in today with everyone. I wanted to come in, but we're getting ready for this regional conference, so we've had meetings today. But I really do appreciate this conversation. It's particularly close to me. I actually moved to Peru in 2023, and I lived there for 6 months. And I met some of the most amazing people. It was probably I would say it was one of those like formative kind of experiences that you have, one of those experiences that you just have and that you just will always remember. But the Afro-Peruvians I met there and their love of their Blackness, like how welcoming they were, it reminded me of kind of being home in a way. So that experience really kind of opened my eyes, and now I still keep up with Peru. I still pay attention to the news that's happening down there. They were just so welcoming that it made me realize, you know, like we should be doing what we can, I guess, in our ways and using our platforms to help uplift these stories. Because one of the things that they were telling me was, you know, we feel like we are invisible in this area. Like Afro-Peruvians make up like 0.7%, like a very small percentage of the population in Peru, but they're like, we're still here. Our stories matter, and what we have to say is important. And so I never would have known, and I never would have learned what I learned if I hadn't gone there and experienced it and actually lived there. So I just wanted to say, like, this conversation is reminding me of my experience there. Thank you.
Marie, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I want to thank you so much. You've made my heart swell up. I'm Peruvian by birth, and there's nothing that we're more proud of than our music, by the way, our Afro-Peruvian musicians who really just go right to the heart of things. Our Minister of Culture for a while was the great Susana Baca, who is an enormous force in bringing Afro-Peruvians together by her music, by her going back to the slave ships, finding the music that people came over with and singing that music today. It's just an extraordinary thing. You've almost made me cry. Thank you.
All right.
I'll say I did not try the cuy. I didn't try cuy, but I love Peru regardless.
I love food. It's great, and you have the best food in Latin America. Yes.
Okay, Roger Witherspoon had his hand up also.
Hi. Thank you very much, Richard. Thank you for this. One of the things that I've noticed over the years is there's long been a difference between different Latino groups. And we in the media tend to simply say Latinos as if they were all the same or would have the same attitudes. Whereas the Marines, for example, have always had 4 different recruiting modes. One for Puerto Ricans because they're already Americans and are used to the military, a different one for Cuban Americans, and another one for Latin Americans who frequently are escaping military regimes. And they all have a different relationship with government and a different relationship with minorities. And many of them, many of the Latinos who come over here, when they first get here, take a look at the racism that exists here and figure they'd be better off associating with whites than with us. And how does one deal with that? How does one address that? How does one look at that? It's something that I think is a subject that we don't delve into enough.
All right. Well, we have 1 minute left. So anybody have one final thought they want to impart that they were thinking about all this time and they just had to get it out? All right. Yes. Roland, yes.
I want to compliment Richard for this great assembly because you have provided great education, not only for the folk here visiting, but our Zoom viewers. So I want to extend a massive Afro-Latino applause for you. You did extremely well.
And on that note, I want to thank everybody for being here today. And I haven't been able to access the chat room yet, but the chat room, there are comments there that we will share them to all those for whom we have email addresses. And then we hope to have this on YouTube also for those who want to look at it again or to share it with friends, colleagues, or even enemies. For being here, and we'll try to do this again next month. Thanks again. And I want to give a shout out before we leave to Sharon Farmer, our photographer. Yeah. And Jackie Green, our producer. And our student assistant.
Well, I'm not a student,
Oh,
but my name is Emma Hudson.
Emma Hudson.
And I know
Yeah.
I deceivingly look like a student, but I work for the Institute for Democracy, Journalism, and Citizenship. So when Margaret spoke earlier, I am the comms coordinator, so I do social media for Syracuse IDJC as well as Newhouse DC.
Okay. Kevin, we want to thank you too. Facilities manager who arranged all the seating and the technical stuff and all that.
these
So
screens.
yeah, all the screens and everything, microphones, all that. So thanks again.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. Happy to do it. Very cool event. So,
All right, now we have to get out of here. So thank you.
Okay.
So long, Richard. Take care, everybody.
Gusto verlo.
Oh, that was so wonderful. Thanks so much. Yes. Oh, okay.